Warning, I look like a hot mess. It is May 6th, 2011. It's about 8:40 at night. I look like I'm in the Blair Witch Project, but the way the lighting is in the living room, it's either super bright or super dim. So instead of being super bright, I chose super dim. I just put my little one to sleep. I said like 100 days ago I was going to do a breastfeeding video, and life got crazy. So let me begin from the beginning. When Harris was first born, he was extremely sleepy. Like he had that whole newborn awake phase for the first hour. He did breastfeed within 15 minutes of being born. He had passed meconium before he was born, so they had to listen to his lungs and get him all cleaned up and everything right away. So they did that, and then they gave him to my husband while I delivered the placenta and got stitched up, and then I got him after that, and we immediately did skin to skin and tried to breastfeed. I don't even know how he latched at first, to be honest with you. I can't even remember. It must have been fairly well. It was such a strange sensation because one of the things I had looked forward to the most about labor and delivery was the chance to breastfeed, and being a mother in general, I really wanted to breastfeed. So when it actually came time to do it, it was so strange. Like I had watched tons of videos, I had read the womanly art of breastfeeding, and I had just definitely done the research, and until you actually do it for the first time, you really don't have any idea what you're doing. So basically, he was a fairly big boy, and I was very nervous about the hospital I delivered at, saying that he was going to need formula because he was so big, and so I really wanted to avoid that at all costs. So when I got to my postpartum room, I pretty much tried to keep on a schedule, like every 2 hours, to try to put him to the breast for at least 20 minutes, even if he kind of wasn't doing anything. My colostrum had been, I had been leaking colostrum since I was like 36 or 35 weeks pregnant, so he did have something to eat. And pretty much at 7 o'clock, I delivered at 4:40. I want to say it's 7 a.m. The lactation consultant came into the room to check his latch. And honestly, she didn't say a word about it. She kind of like manhandled my boobs, which was weird. She just kind of went in there and grabbed it and shoved it in his mouth. And he latched fairly well. I have large breasts, and I guess on the flatter end of nipples, really not flat or too flat anyway, but I felt like I couldn't get enough of my nipple in his mouth. So I think it was the second day of life, his nurse came in and said, "Why don't you try a nipple shield?" So we tried a nipple shield. Because he was so sleepy, I just couldn't get him to open his mouth wide enough no matter what I did. I couldn't get him to open his mouth wide enough to feed properly. So it really helped with the nipple shield because I just kind of shoved the whole plastic part in his mouth, and that really did stimulate his sucking. So I was a little bummed that we had to use a nipple shield because I, had planned on just magically being able to breastfeed. But he was definitely getting milk by the day we went home. So I was 3 days postpartum. My milk had come in, and I was like crazy engorged. So when he came home, he continued to be like really sleepy for the first 2 days he was home, and then I think it was about the 6th day that he was alive. 6 days postpartum, he not 6 days, he was alive for 10 months, but that he was born, he finally woke up, and he still didn't really have a spectacular latch. He was kind of a lazy latcher, didn't want to open his mouth wide enough. I had absolutely no nipple issues whatsoever. No cracking, no bleeding, no soreness. Like, it was amazing. It was really kind of amazing. So we used the nipple shield for the first 2 weeks. I would try every day, at least 1 or 2 nursing sessions to start off without the nipple shield. And the more I had read about it, the more I had kind of figured out that he needed the incentive to get a little milk before, because if he wasn't getting milk by just latching onto my breast, he kind of gave up and got frustrated, or just gave up and fell asleep. So I would nurse him for a little bit with the nipple shield on till the milk let down, and then I'd take the nipple shield out of his mouth and nurse him. And eventually he was completely off the nipple shield by 3 weeks. I just kept doing the same thing every single day until he just didn't need the nipple shield anymore. I think part of it was that he was old enough. Let's see. So my son is 4 months. He's 4 months and like a week old, and he has not had any formula. He's been exclusively breastfed since day 1, which I am very proud of. I have 2 conditions which are like known milk killers. I have PCOS and hypothyroidism. So a lot of people with either one of those diseases, or syndromes, or whatever you want to call it, have a very difficult time maintaining supply. I had an oversupply in the beginning. I had a very forceful letdown. I mean, sputtering, choking, coughing, just angry, an angry letdown. So unfortunately, it kind of created a monster, because I had to pump and get at least an ounce off of each side before he could even handle the flow. So pumping on top of feeding him kind of just created this snowball effect where I just had so much milk. I got a killer freezer stash before I went back to work. I went back to work at 12 weeks postpartum, and by that time I had like 200 and something ounces in the freezer, which I'm glad I had, but kind of posed a problem because I feed him the bottles that I pumped the day before, which I really shouldn't do. I should be freezing those bottles and then taking from my freezer stash. But anyway, that's another whole other story. Around 12 weeks postpartum, when I went back to work, around 12 weeks is when your milk really regulates. Excuse me. And I had been kind of really slacking on continuing to pump. The first couple weeks postpartum, I would feed him, and he was normally satisfied on one side, and then I would pump the other side, and I would take that and freeze it. So, it was a good system, except for the forceful letdown. I lost my train of thought. So, oh my gosh. I talk about his weight. When we left he was born at 9 pounds 4 ounces. When we left the hospital, he was 8 pounds 14 ounces. By the time he was 2 days or 3 days old, at the first PD appointment after his birth, he was 9 pounds 1 ounce, which was great. He was almost up to his birth weight. And by the time he was 1 week old, he was 9 pounds 10 ounces. So that was spectacular for a breastfeeding baby. At 1 month, I think I have this baby book somewhere. At 1 month old, he was, let's see if I can find this. Oh goodness, I'm wasting a lot of my time here talking about this. Okay, here it is. At 1 month old, he was 11 pounds, even 23 inches long. At 2 months old, he was 12 pounds, 14 ounces, 25 inches long. At 3 months, he was 14 pounds, 8 ounces, 28 inches long. And at 4 months, he's 15 pounds, 7.6 ounces, and 29 inches long. So he's gaining perfectly. I said my son is a refluxer, so I think at the beginning he really cluster fed a lot to try to soothe himself. And once we started on the Prevacid, I definitely saw like a 3-hour pattern start to emerge where he would only nurse every 3 hours. So we've been pretty much every 3 to 4 hours since then. He takes 4-ounce bottles while I'm at work. He probably needs closer to 6, but he won't really take it. He's kind of a snacker. So basically when I work, I'm probably gonna have to make another pumping video on top of breastfeeding, but when I work, I leave 3 4-ounce bottles, a 3-ounce bottle, and then 2 2-ounce bottles. And he does not even get close to eating all of that in a day, but there will be times when he'll eat 4 ounces and then an hour later kind of just be acting like he's hungry, so my mom will give him 2 more ounces and then he'll be satisfied for a longer period of time. Or he'll eat that and then he'll decide he wants 3 ounces. I mean, it's really not a direct science. It's much easier to nurse, and I wish that I could just nurse him at every feeding. The emotional aspect of breastfeeding is tremendous, and before I started feeding my son, I could not even begin to imagine a breastfeeding relationship like the one we have. And I always kind of thought that it was strange that people breastfed their children past a year old. I still don't think that we'll breastfeed much longer than a year, just because I'm hoping to have a return of my menses so that we could possibly start trying for another baby. And I am ready to have my body back. Not that I don't love sacrificing for my child, but I want to lose weight. And about 7 weeks postpartum, I went on, I restricted my calories because I was eating like 3,000 calories a day. And every time I tried to cut back, I was just starving. And no matter what I ate, I mean, I was eating like tons. I was eating 3, 4, 5 apples a day. And then I'd have, like oatmeal and granola and yogurt. And no matter how healthy the food was, I needed the calories. Like I was just craving calories. So at that point, I have 1 minute left. Ugh. So anyway, I tried to cut down on my calories, and every time I did, my milk would tank. So I decided that I'm just, I'm sustaining another person's life via my body, and however long we breastfeed for, that that will be his time, and I'll get my body back eventually. So it just kind of breaks my heart. I feel like so many of the ladies that I follow on YouTube have such a difficult time breastfeeding, and they sacrifice so much to give their child breast milk, and I think it's so awesome, and I encourage people to try, like even if you have to supplement, or even if it doesn't work out the way you want it to, it's just
really awesome. But I'm gonna go, and I'm going to make another video about pumping and probably continue the rest of this. Okay?